Hi, I'm Virginia, Head of Solutions Engineering at TeamOhana and your local TeamOhana Computer guide. In this session, we'll be using TeamOhana Computer and the data already in our headcount plan to build a sales capacity model. We're going to focus on the head of sales here, who wants to know if the team that they're hiring actually covers the number that they've been handed, and they don't want to wait a few days for their chief of staff to pull the numbers. They want an answer pretty quickly. Before we build out that full capacity plan, I'll show you two things that a sales leader does every day using the computer, how they can ask a quick question and take an action on what they find. Then we'll bring in some planning assumptions and model the entire sales capacity plan. So let's start here with a simple question. When we think about sales capacity, just wanting to make sure that I'm on track to hire all of my open sales headcount so that they'll be fully ramped for Q1 when I want to start modeling out my capacity. So I can come right in and ask the computer my questions. I don't even need to go to a dashboard or request. I can get all of my questions answered right from the computer. And it's going to respect the regular user access that you're used to seeing in TeamOhana. I don't even need to go to an admin to get this data. It's just going to be able to pull all of my sales headcount that I have access to. It's also going to be pulling our live headcount plan data. So this is not a stale report. This is being fed directly from our to be hired plan in Team. Okay. And now the computer has returned our results. It's looking at our headcount plan in TeamOhana. It's also looking at our standard time to fill metrics broken out by our different roles here and calculating what time each of those different types of reps needs to be on board in order them to be fully ready to go for Q1 of next year. And then at the bottom here, it's calling out some insights. And finally factoring in ramp time, highlighting that 30 of the 34 headcount I have in plan won't be fully productive when Q1 opens, and that the enterprise AE pipeline is especially exposed. It's also flagging for me that I have a few different headcount that are not even on track to hit their target start date. So let's say that we want to take action on this SDR manager role here. I can see that this is TOH 344 and that the recruiter is Justin Kazasta. So I'm going to take action right from this view and ask the computer to leave a comment on the headcount for Justin, my recruiter, to give me a status update on what's happening with this high priority rec. Whenever we ask the computer to take an action in TeamOhana, it's always going to do a dry run and ask for confirmation before going ahead and taking that action. You can see here, it's asking me if I want to confirm that I'm posting this comment TOH 344, that I want to tag Justin, this is a high priority rec, and ask him our question. So in the meantime, let's pull up that rec in TeamOhana so I can show you how this works. All right, so this is our headcount in TeamOhana. You can see we don't have any comments here yet, but when I go ahead and apply this comment, all right, and we'll refresh the page here. Now you can see I was able to leave my comment on this SDR manager role. Just like that, I was able to take an action right from the computer based off of an insight I saw from the question that I asked. This is the part that matters. The TeamOhana computer doesn't just tell you that you have some concerns with your hiring plan. It actually allows you to take action and collaborate on the team all within one screen. That's the difference between a chatbot that just answers questions and a coworker that does the work all in one place. Now let's start a fresh chat and actually do our sales capacity analysis. Now we know in TeamOhana what our current headcount plan is for the sales department, but there's a few other inputs that go into building out a sales capacity model. I'm going to feed those directly into the computer through a CSV file. My inputs will be my quota for the year by segment, my average attainment, and my average ramp times per segment as well. And so you'll see that my prompt contains all of these details, telling the computer exactly where to pull those additional data sources from. You see here, as the computer works, it's doing things like pulling the active sales AEs from the employee master data that lives in TeamOhana in order to assess our current capacity based on the employees we already have in seat. And it's doing all of that logic and reasoning. Now, there's a lot of inputs that go into the sales capacity model, and this is a key difference between a basic chatbot that can only answer simple questions versus a tool like TeamOhana Computer that leverages the entire power of best-of-breed models like Claude to actually do a lot of the logic and reasoning for you around the headcount plan to really understand what do we mean by an open and forecasted sales headcount, what's the difference between a sales manager versus an IC, some have quotas and some don't, and then pulling that together with the additional inputs that I gave the tool, which were our quarterly quota by sales segment, so mid-market, enterprise, and so on. For those of you who are newer to LLM prompting, just a few tips for you here how to structure the best prompt. First one is if you're unsure of how to prompt the computer, you can always ask it for guidance on preparing the prompt before you actually have it run an analysis. But beyond that, it's usually best to start with just a maximum of about 3 sentences. And then you can always iterate from there with a few follow-up prompts in order to tweak the visualization or the dashboard that you're building. The key things you want to hit on in your prompt are the data that you're pulling. So where it's coming from, whether it's living in TeamOhana, like your open headcount and your current employees, or whether it's coming from a file that you're also attaching. The decision that you're trying to support. So in this case, do I have enough sales capacity in order to hit my quota for the year or for my quarterly quota? If you're building a dashboard, any named metrics, who the audience is, and any hard constraints you might have. If you want to specify that it should drill down by a certain parameter or be filterable by division, department, location, or any other filters that are key to the analysis. Another tip I always like to run is asking the system to add its own recommendations and analysis. So rather than building a dashboard, you're actually getting the full data analyst's input on what the metrics in the dashboard actually mean, and even recommendations as to what actions you should take in order to impact those metrics. All right, so now we've got our sales capacity dashboard, and let's take a look at our initial output. In our first tab, we have our company overview here. So we have some key metrics at the top. Active quota reps, so how many reps we have that are carrying quota, including our planned hires, and then assessment of coverage. So it looks like in Q3 and Q4, we've got some significant coverage discrepancies, which is okay, where we need to build a hiring plan around these discrepancies. And if we come in here, we can see that quarter by quarter breakdown of our ramped capacity compared to our quota. So you can see right now, it doesn't look like we have enough capacity given our current headcount and our attainment in order to hit quota. And then breaking down here, I can understand what exactly the shortfall is and the coverage percentage. You'll see that they all in this one prompt. We just prompted it one time. The dashboard has built out several different helpful views for us. So here I can see this broken down by sales segment, SMB, mid-market, enterprise, what my gap is. So you can see in certain are worse than others, mid-market is worse than enterprise, and so on. And then what do we actually need to do about this? So we know we need to hire more AEs if we're going to have a shot at hitting our quota. If I come into this section here, gap in the hiring plan, you'll see the computer was smart enough to actually tell us exactly how many additional hires we need in order to close the gap. Something wonky going on in mid-market here, so I'll definitely want to drill into that more, but we can see all the other headcount recommendations probably look pretty realistic. Then from here, I would go ahead and start building out my hiring plan. If this is my quota for the year, or I might need to revisit my inputs. So changing my AE quota by segment in order to get to a better target. And of course, like I mentioned, this is just our one-shot view. So I could always ask a follow-up prompt, like asking the computer to add more filters or drill downs or highlighting other elements that go into your sales capacity model. But this is just to give you a sense of how easy it was for me to build out the sales capacity dashboard just by giving a few additional inputs to the plan and then one quick prompt to get to this first pass. Not only was I able to answer my question, do I have the sales capacity in order to hit my quota, but I also have my action items and know exactly how many headcount I need to add to the plan in order to close my gap. Thanks for joining, and be sure to check out our other videos to learn more about how to use the TeamOhana computer.